All right. Hey, Chubby. We are back another week.
We
This week we
are.
are talking about the creator's AI paradox and the tools that you and I use, some tips, and how do we rise above the noise that we see now on social media with all of these tools allowing more and more people to become creators very easily.
Right. And they are not just people now, right? Because they are AI. It's like we're getting to a point when social media now is like AI replying to AI and AI creating content for AI, which is insane.
Yeah, it's true. It's like a whole nother level that we're going to start seeing. Um, AI that's making content that's driven by creators, but then AI models that train on content that was created by creators for who are using AI. And so I think that's why we get kind of this echo chamber that we're seeing, where we see a lot of the same ideas, a lot of the same phrasing, a lot of the same structure in people's content. And it just amplifies the same messaging while not having much room for variation.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, to be honest, I think it's already been an echo chamber. Like, there are very few creators who actually take the courage to say something. Not like, obviously, there's no new ideas, but it's about really finding ways to share those ideas in a unique way, so you're not just a copycat of the 100 other people who are in your space. So to me, not much has changed, because I think, even though we call them creators, but most creators aren't that creative, in the sense that they have been told that you just have to see the whatever viral format and just, basically steal the idea, and then you can use your own whatever. And I think that's not changed over the last few years either. People have copied each other for a very long time, which is, I think, why I think we both agree that this, like, we can talk about why you think it's a paradox, but I think why really focusing on original but leveraging AI for the things that allow you to, multiply your reach, basically, is going to be really useful.
Yeah. Should we talk about why we think
Yeah.
it's a
Am
paradox?
I, well, I forgot to ask, but am I speaking to the real Andrew, or?
This is my AI generation here. I've actually, I'm in Spain right now. This is on program. I synced this up a week ago.
Yeah.
Um,
But
I,
it's really funny, because this is going to be reality in like a few years, probably.
I've seen some ads where it looks like a real person, and then it'll break at like halfway through, and the guy will say, "That wasn't me. That was my AI." And it's like, whoa, it's hard to tell. And I just saw I use Midjourney for image generation a lot, and they just released like their video like tool, or whatever you want to call it, version, and yeah, I couldn't tell that it was AI. And it's just, I mean, this is only the start. Like, we already aren't going to be able to tell what's real and what's not. And then when that happens, people just will go to a point where they don't trust anything, right? It's like, what do you do then?
Totally. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think there has to be some regulation. So right now, what we can do is obviously predictions, but I hope that there will be a way, because platforms would hate to lose for like the users, because they decide, well, everything is AI, and I'm like here to connect with some real people. Especially places like YouTube have always been around real people connecting with the real creators. That's literally why the platform is so popular and booming. So I think there has to be some regulation on like an AI label or something, because otherwise this world would go crazy. I mean, you would see politicians, celebrities, even us being reproduced by someone else who has access to our profile or live like recordings, and use it for anything. Like, somebody could just, whatever, create a an ad for a porn site using my voice, my image, and my videos and my gestures, and that would be a crazy world.
Yeah, that's already happening to big celebrities. That's happened to Joe Rogan. People have used a AI version of his voice that's pretty close to the real thing for advertisements, on podcasts and things like that. And you know, it's deceptive. And I've seen channels that pretend to be like a Joe Rogan side project, and they're just faceless, but they use his voice, and it's all like B-roll and things like that cut together. And um, they're like analyzing UFC fights and stuff, and it's all written by I don't even know who. It's kind of like a faceless account. So they've essentially leveraged his celebrity to kind of monetize a channel. And I don't know. To me, that never seemed appealing. I don't know. Maybe I've got a higher like bar for what I consider moral or immoral, or just honest or dishonest. But people are going to do it. There's an opportunity to make money, and um, that's the world we're living in. So we're going to see more and more content just flood the space. I watched a video by a creator who I like, Callaway. You could find him on YouTube and Instagram.
I think we watched the
And
same video.
yeah, he was kind of talking about the
The tools
way
that
he
he's
saw
using.
AI being used and separated on the different platforms, like having a feed that has human and AI content versus like one that's just human content. You can kind of filter it. Um, but the thing is, a lot of AI content is outperforming human content right now. So if that continues to trend in that direction, I don't think the platforms will really care if the creators don't feel like they can have their voices heard on those platforms. Like they used to care about creators because they needed them to serve up content that was engaging so that they could serve ads. And now if they can just do it with AI and they don't need the creators, I think they'll take less care for those relationships.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what takes us to like why this is a paradox of like people, the creators, right, leveraging AI or using AI. So why did you come up with this title of like the AI paradox?
Well, when AI tools first started being used, I think by creators, it seemed a little hush hush. Like people didn't want to admit they were using ChatGPT for writing and things like that. And then as it became normalized and more people started to use it, I think people started to like fess up and say, "Oh yeah, I use it." And then they got some
And
positive
they get away
reinforcement.
with it.
What's that?
They get away with it now.
Well, I think a lot of people were curious about using these tools themselves, creators and non-creators, people who just wanted to use it at work, wanted to use it for writing emails and things, and people who started to create content around how to write better prompts and how to use it to improve your storytelling, or whatever your interests are when it came to writing. Those posts got a lot of attention. So now you started to see accounts that were specialized in getting better at using AI tools. And so I think now it's something that everybody is admitting they use, partly because you have to. It's like the rate at which people are creating content and publishing websites and products and tools um, is so fast. It's a breakneck pace now. And if you're kind of just like working without using those tools, I mean, it's like trying to compete in the industrial revolution with like, a what's the word? Like, some like a wooden tools or something like that. I
Yeah,
was trying to think
or
of like,
side or whatever. Exactly. Hmm.
yeah. So um, I think people are having to start to adopt the new normal, but
Yeah.
it's like trying to figure out how to do that in a way that is authentic for yourself, how you can be more productive but still maintain your originality is
Humanness.
something that interests me. What's that?
Your humanness. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It does. I find so. I said I would list out like kind of talk about the tools I use today, and so I've use ChatGPT a lot for brainstorming. I use it as a sounding board for ideas and to kind of work through thoughts I'm having, which is surprisingly helpful. When I first started using ChatGPT, I didn't think I would use it for that, but it's allowed me to move through ideas and get to what I'm seeking, like the core of what I'm trying to express. And I also use it for writing. So one of the things that I think a lot of people make the mistake of is with using these tools for writing, they'll use them to write the whole thing. They'll basically just say, "Oh, write me a post about like blah blah blah," and they get this very generic sort of listicle style content that you see could come from anywhere. And what I do is I'll kind of do a stream of consciousness where I'll write down what it is that I'm trying to express, and a lot of times it's just this massive long block of text. And I find the more you give the AI tools, the better output you get. It's like the more input you give it. Um, and it has a tone that matches the way you write. So that's the way I use ChatGPT for improving writing. And sometimes I'll write something out and then I just don't think it has like a good flow or structure, and I'll work with it to like reorganize it. And then I've started using Claude recently for writing because they write very differently. And that's the thing I think a lot of people should do, is use the different tools and try them out and compare
Yeah,
them.
and tap into each platform's strength. Like ChatGPT, to be honest, like I teach messaging, which has a lot to do with copywriting, and ChatGPT isn't the best copywriter in general. It's so generic. It's got the M dash. It's got so many of these stupid, idiotic things that you always have to look at it and see, does it really sound like me? Or it's just like a copy of what, these cheesy copies that I think. So I love that you mentioned Claude, because I think Claude is really good at like writing copy.
Yeah. And then it just does that basically. It doesn't do much more. Whereas like ChatGPT, I think it has more reasoning and logic than, it can code. And then obviously the image generation, which got a lot better in their latest release. But yeah, I think you're right. You should use these tools for their specific strengths. And I agree. I think ChatGPT, the more you use it, you start to see patterns. There's certain things that kind of disappeared from popular written language, like colons, M dashes. All of a sudden, in the last like 18 months, everybody's using them. Whereas like no one even knew how to use them 5 years
Yeah.
ago.
Or even words. Like now everything is all of a sudden a game changer.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you can actually see how it's been written by AI. So I think the more we see that, the more people will build this new skill of like AI detection, which isn't a bad thing, because I think we all need to build this skill of like being able to discern, which I think is an important skill.
Yeah. With most technology, we look back on what we thought was impressive at the time, and years later when we look back and it's so obvious to us. And I think we'll probably look back on a lot of the writing today and think, oh my God, that was just like rudimentary AI writing.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
so obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the important thing is still to make sure that you focus on grabbing the right attention, right people's attention, and then making sure that you're converting them into your system, where you don't need to like rely on this AI stuff, but you can actually come in and leverage your your empathy and everything else that makes you a human and a purpose-driven entrepreneur. So I do always like to mix them up and say, yes, everybody else is using AI tools, so yes, we need to, but then making sure that I use content for what it's supposed to be. So, which is not keeping my people on the platform and relying on that for my sales or anything else in my business, but actually bringing people into my world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's ultimately the goal, right? So we're trying to create content, hopefully with a larger purpose in mind, right? Sure, there are some people out there who it's just a hobby, but I think a lot of people who are doing it today realize the potential, especially if they're getting traction. They might start to want to make that a full-time thing and have a business. And so you start to sell products online, and your content should drive attention to the products and services you offer. And I think if we're using AI to generate all of this content, I don't think that builds trust. I don't think that builds any authority. And the better people get at discerning what's AI generated and what's not, I think you might start to chip away at trust rather than build it and direct people to what you offer.
Absolutely. So I think it's like the tool itself will be a tool. If you aren't aware of the things that actually build demand for your offer, what relevancy triggers get your people to see your content, it's just gonna be a tool. And the person who actually knows more about psychology, knows more about marketing, knows more about how to actually run a business that is based on that direct response is always going to win. Obviously, with better tools, you can get better results, but you would still have to apply basic human psychology because humans don't change. Technology can, but humans still focus on, you know, they have resistance, they focus on all these different behavioral economic stuff that I teach as well that allow people to get the right people's attention. And I feel like there still needs to be a person who looks at it, who thinks, does it actually sound like me? Do I actually want to post it? And we can't fully 100% rely on like AI agents to just churn out content without us looking into it. If you're the type of person who actually cares about your reputation.
Yeah. You bring up 2 points that I want to touch on here. One is you get better output the more knowledge you have on a subject. You can prompt AI tools better. So it's like you can wield those tools better when you're an expert in a specific subject matter. For instance, I sometimes use ChatGPT with coding, and I read through the code that it gives me, and I can see what's going to work and not work. Right? I know how to prompt it to fix what's not working or how to revise that. But if you don't know how to code at all, or you're doing like vibe coding, you're probably going to quickly get into a situation you don't know how to get out of because you don't have the vocabulary for it. And I think with psychology, whatever expertise, science, you can use ChatGPT in these tools, but you're going to be limited by your own understanding at times. Yeah. And then now I forgot the other point I wanted to make. That's all right. That was the main one I wanted to make.
Yeah, I talked about the reputation part as well.
Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to point out was when a lot of creators have outsourced their commenting, and that always seemed strange to me. Why would I ever let somebody else use my name and face to respond to comments on the internet? I don't know
Or
how.
even DMs.
Right, like I don't know how they sort that out. Maybe they have like a set of scripts they can use, but to me, it just seemed odd because how can you allow somebody else to have a dialogue on your behalf? It just,
Yeah, yeah.
I would
The
never do
same
that.
for me. I'm like, I didn't even get for many months. I was like, what the fuck is a ghostwriter? But yeah, that's another story for
Well,
another life.
ghostwriting a book, though, that's you're doing that in collaboration. You have a chance to review the entire thing before it comes out. So the traditional idea of a ghostwriter is one thing, but somebody who's publishing content in your name without you taking the time to review it is just, I think, reckless with your reputation.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's been like so many people see this, right? But the truth is, it's also on the platforms in a way, or us giving our power away to platforms because they care about the engagement, not about the connection. So, the algorithms will get triggered when there is more engagement, not really about the quality of that engagement, which is pretty sad, but this is the time we live in, unfortunately. So you could just leave a fucking heart emoji under every post and it would still count as engagement. Even if I'm like writing a supportive 3-paragraph comment under Andrew's post or anything, which is really sad, but it's just surface level. But what can we do? We can learn how the algorithms work and use them for our own best interest.
Do you think that desire for connection, human connection, is why we're seeing more communities have a bit of a resurgence? I don't know how well they're doing, but I am seeing a lot of bigger name creators migrate over to community building.
Yeah,
I wonder.
I do
Oh, go ahead.
think it's something that people might already invest in because they already see the future. They see the future in like 1, 2 years from now when everything is AI content, people don't trust anyone. And what they actually need is just a safe space, right? To be themselves, to connect with others, to learn from each other. And communities are going to be a space where you could go live, where you can actually see real people, and maybe you can create a no AI community as well, where there is guaranteed that it's just real people sharing real stories, being real with each other. And I think there's going to be a surgence of that. So I myself also teach that to my students now, how to build a community, how to build a membership model as their low ticket entry, which is an easy yes, like for 27, 37, 47, even $97 that people get into. And then you can further build, nurture that audience that is potentially more likely to invest in your higher ticket stuff because they already know that you deliver when they invest. So I think I see that that's probably going to be the future. For the people who actually focus on a micro community, I would say, who really focus on that specific identity with their specific problems, issues, challenges, fears, they are going to thrive a lot. But I think this is where people who are brave enough to be specific so that they can bypass the generic as fuck chat GPT stuff, they are going to win.
Do you think a lot of the people who consider themselves authentic creators or seeking real connection with their audience are going to fracture off to these micro communities more and more and be less and less engaged on the major platforms as the sea of AI content floods the scene?
That's a good question. So I think in general, authentic creators do struggle with content creation because they want to be authentic, because they don't want to be the over edited, over optimized, all kinds of stuff. So what they will have to learn is really how to make sure that they also leverage mm, their authenticity not as a strategy, which is what many people think it is, but as the currency, which is, I think, ultimately the separator. So the authentic creators that I think learn how people make decisions, which is basically how you run a business, how you build your messaging, how you create content and bring in more people, and how you build irresistible offers. You basically see, you know, the rules of behavior economics, you know how people react to certain things, you keep testing and then leveraging what works, you throw out what doesn't. The people who are authentic creators and leverage that will be able to build those micro communities. The people who are just winging it, randomly post content without even a fucking subtitles, I mean, they won't be able to, I think. And I've seen so many examples of people thinking that anyone would watch a video that doesn't even have a title on it when they have the option to just keep scrolling past that. So someone has to be insane to think that without any sort of script or incentive, people would watch their content. So I always want to talk about this because it's my biggest pet peeve, that being authentic doesn't mean you get to be winging it.
Yeah, that. I mean, that's a good point. I want to stay on topic. I could bite on that one,
Yeah.
but we'll save that for a different conversation. Um, so again, I'll just go over with some of the time we have left. I want to deliver on the promise that I made with the title of this this meetup, is that talk about the tools I use, which I mentioned already: ChatGPT for writing and image generation. I use Midjourney for image generation, and I'm going to be experimenting with that with video as well because I'm curious, and it seems affordable. The image for this event is actually one I generated with Midjourney, and I was going to show it. Maybe I will if we have some time. And then for what else do I use here? Like I said, Claude for writing. Yeah, that's kind of it, to be honest. I don't really use a lot of AI tools personally, but I'm curious to find out more about like video editing tools that use AI. I know like for this tool we use StreamYard, and it has AI clip generation. They're okay. I mean, to be honest, they sometimes are framed a little weird, and you get stuck with like the StreamYard generic colors of the subtitles and things like that. And most of the time I'll just use it as a way to get some ideas for which clips to pull, and I just edit it myself in like CapCut or something like that. But yeah, that kind of sums it up for me with AI tools. What about you?
Yeah, I would say so. I personally haven't used ChatGPT for a while. I much rather use, so I have a subscription with Perplexity, a yearly subscription, which is amazing. It has access to everything. Like it gives you access to Grok if you want, Gemini, ChatGPT, everything. So highly recommended, by the way, because for the same price that you would pay for like a premium subscription for ChatGPT, you can get for a month, you get a whole year of subscription for Perplexity, and it does deep research. You can switch up all kinds of things. You can share your screen, show stuff to it, and so many great things. So I love Perplexity itself. It's an all-in-one thing, and it has access to R1, which is DeepSeek's like language model. So I prefer to use that actually instead of ChatGPT, just because I want to sound different. Because I know that I don't want my content to sound like ChatGPT, and I know how powerful the Chinese are in their AI systems and everything. Could come from my bias for Asia and for the technology over here, but I think I highly recommend trying that as well. If you don't want to sound like everybody else or risk sounding like everybody else, then DeepSeek has an amazing platform, very easy to use. For me, a lot more like it will help you stand out a lot more than everybody else who's using ChatGPT. And now I'm giving out the secret. So if people watch this, then half of the world will sound like DeepSeek, not ChatGPT. And I highly recommend building your own, if you can, your own like GPT, your own, basically. There are so many websites. The thing that I've been using, I forgot the name, I can give it just quickly, is that I'm building myself that I'm gonna give to my students and everybody else who's using it, and it's called chatbase.co. So chatbase.co. You can build your own stuff, upload your coaching, your methodologies, whatever documents you've created already, your frameworks, any future coaching calls, and then it will, you could use it for so many different things. Mine will be like helping my students create messaging, having a look at all kinds of different aspects of it, like how to build a better sales page, how to leverage their content, and based on the feedback they get, so they can build a better converting messaging ecosystem. So, that's also a great tool that you will have as your unique selling point as well, that you get to be leveraging in your offer.
So just for people who aren't familiar, you're training a GPT model on existing data of yourself, right? So now your students can talk to that GPT, and it will kind of answer as it imagines you would, right? Is that
exactly? Yeah.
okay? But it is kind of funny that we said we didn't trust other people to speak on our behalf, yet you trust your GPT to speak on your behalf.
I mean, I think it takes time to train it. So I still haven't released it to my students, right? That's one thing. And I think it needs constant, some sort of a, like you still need to be there and see. But I do think that that's the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see the progression, and maybe you can share more in the coming weeks as you know how that's going. I'd be curious to find out. Um, I think we're at time. I know you typically have another call you got to head to, so I want to be respectful of that. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap things up today?
I think just be wary of using AI because AI cannot think. AI just repeats whatever it can emulate from whatever is out there, whatever it has been fed. So, yes, let's not fall into the trap of like trying to produce so much more to keep up with everybody and then lose our humanity, our empathy, our everything that makes us human, conscious, authentic, and purpose driven.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think one of the things that makes us human is our creativity, our ingenuity, and AI trains on existing models, so it can only work from the past. And if you're trying to stand out, I don't know how that's ever going to be possible if you're using a tool that can only replicate what's already been done.
Exactly. Like, let's not forget your biggest asset is here, your ability to think. And as an entrepreneur, there's nothing more valuable than that.
Well said. All right. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have questions, just drop them in the comment section, and we'll follow up with you. Hopefully we can talk more about this because I think there's more I'd like to share. I had some images that I pulled that I wanted to go over, but I think the conversation was more valuable than just sidebarring it for the images. But yeah, let's bring this up in the coming weeks. All right, Chubby, good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.